from being killed by Muslim soldiers by pretending to be a believer, hence constantly deceiving Muslims and mocking Islam, whilst actually being a non-Muslim would have been his habit. So in being a hypocrite in the time of the Holy Prophet, it was mocking the religion and causing the religion damage. Blessed Hadith, 4 signs of a hypocrite. Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu anhuma narrates that the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, anyone who bears 4 attributes is a complete hypocrite, whilst anyone who bears only one of them will possess one attribute of hypocrisy until he forsakes it, until he leaves it. So when entrusted with something, he breaches that trust. Whilst talking, he lies. If he makes a promise, he breaks it. When arguing, he resorts to swearing. So 4 signs of munafiqat. Some people have 1 sign, some people have 2, some have 3, some have 4. Someone with 4 is like a total munafiq. He's a total hypocrite. Warning about hypocrisy. Hypocrisy in belief in Aqidah is the worst category of disbelief. On Judgment Day, such a hypocrite will be sentenced to the lowest dungeon of hell for eternity. Practical hypocrisy is a major sin. This is what is common amongst Muslims. It's forbidden, it's haram, and it leads to hell. May the Creator of all the universes save all Muslims from both types of hypocrisy. Okay. So alhamdulillah, we're all safe from the first type of hypocrisy, but the second type is very common in the Muslim community. Even that's haram. The first type of hypocrisy is kufr, the second type is haram. A Madani method of avoiding hypocrisy. This is a story. The prominent dream interpreter, Sayyiduna Imam Muhammad ibn Sirin rahmatullah, asked a man how he was feeling, to which the latter replied with a great despair, if a man owes somebody 500 silver coins whilst he has a wife and children but no money, how do you think he'd feel? So Imam ibn Sirin just said, how are you today? Are you alright? And he was, rather than just say, yeah, I'm okay, he said, I'm really worried, I've got loads of financial problems. Hearing this, the Shaykh rahmatullah went home and returned with 1,000 silver coins for the man. And he advised, pay off your debt with 500 coins and keep the other 500 for your family. After this particular encounter, the Shaykh, so even though the Shaykh had helped him, but he pledged that he would never inquire about another human being's condition. He's never going to ask anyone how they are. Hujjatul Islam, Sayyidina Imam Muhammad ibn Muhammad Ghazali, he elaborates, he explains why. Imam ibn Sirin pledged this oath because he rahmatullah felt that if I ever ask another individual how he's feeling, and the other individual responds with disappointing news, after which I am unable to help him, then that would make me a hypocrite with regards to my inquiry. Okay. So that was his soch, like, what if I ask someone how they are, as in like asking, behaving like I'm worried about him, and then he says I've got some mushkil, and then I don't help him, so I'm a hypocrite then. Okay. So that was his soch. The message, the depth behind it is, don't just ask people rasmi taur pe. It doesn't mean you have to help someone every time they share a problem with you. That's not what it means. That's not fatwa. That's his ihtiyat, and that's his khawf-e khuda, and that's his own sort of his attitude. That's not a fatwa, that's his taqwa. So ask people how they are, but when you ask them, if they do say that they're worried, feel their pain as well. Don't just ask theek or anything, and when they're sharing their pain with you, and there's a lot of times we've got a frown on our face, but inside we're happy. The next man's got problems, and if you mention something good, we'll have a smile on our face, but inside we're sort of a bit stressed. Sadly, that's the case. So causes and cures for hypocrisy. 2 causes and cures for hypocrisy in belief. So although this first type of hypocrisy is not very common, we'll still do the 2 causes. The first cause of hypocrisy in belief is ignorance. When a person does not acquire adequate knowledge about faith, along with knowledge about obligatory and necessary duties, fara'id and wajibat, then the devil will implant various dangerous ideas in his mind, and consequently the person will fall into the fatal disease of firm hypocrisy. The cure for this is for you to acquire detailed knowledge about beliefs, obligations and necessities. The second cause of hypocrisy in belief is the company of heretics, bad mazhabs, gumrah people who are not Sunnis. The cure for this is for you to stay as far as possible from, far away as possible from heretics, from bad mazhabs, and inculcate this Madani mindset within your brain. If I realize that a particular individual is a thief, and that by associating with him there is a good chance that he will steal my money, obviously I will most definitely never wish to associate with that thief, or I will at least be highly vigilant around him. Now, bearing this in mind, heretics, Bad Aqidas, are such thieves that can steal my most precious asset, my faith. So then why should I associate with them? Beware, your faith is your most valuable asset. Allah forbid, if you lose this, you will be doomed. You must run from even the shadow of a heretic of Bad Mazhab and avoid absolutely any form of affiliation with him. Undoubtedly, anyone who blasphemes, insults any of the blessed prophets, والسلام, especially the chief of all the prophets, والسلام, or tries to search for flaws in his infallible and flawless personality, or accuses and insults the blessed Sahaba, or insults the Ahl al-Bayt, the honorable family of the Holy Prophet, ﷺ, or utters disrespectful remarks against the venerous pious people, the awliya, and their shrines, can never be a well-wisher of the Muslim Ummah. Always keep your distance from the company of such people. Pray to Allah Almighty for protection from such devil followers, and accompany people who love the Prophet, the Sahaba, the Ahl Bayt, and the Awliya Kiram. I've just summarized those last few. We'll talk a bit more about that in a few seconds. 3 causes and cures for practical hypocrisy. The first cause of practical hypocrisy is ignorance. Anyone unaware of hypocrisy, its symptoms and harms, will catch this fatal disease. The cure for this is for you to acquire knowledge about practical hypocrisy and its harms. Think long and hard about them and strive to avoid it. So knowledge. The second cause of practical hypocrisy is condemnable greed. Greed. Sometimes a person is a hypocrite due to his greed and desire for a particular thing. You can cure this by contemplating about the harms of condemnable greed. And number 3, the third cause of hypocrisy in deeds is love for material things. When an individual is overwhelmed by love for material things, then in order to acquire his beloved things, he sometimes turns to a hypocrite. So again, the cure is to just think about the harms of falling in love with materialistic things. So there's 3 causes and cures there. It doesn't mention fame there. So wanting fame, wanting popularity, not wanting to upset people, that's a big cause of hypocrisy as well, isn't it? So there's not only 3 causes of hypocrisy. Just because there's 3 in the book, it doesn't mean there's only 3. Not wanting to upset people. Okay? Wanting to be, the Urdu word is har dil aziz hona. Wanting to be liked, a people pleaser. Wanting to be a people pleaser. Not wanting to upset anyone. So fame, these things make us hypocrites as well. So inshallah, my intention was just to do 1 chapter today, not 2 chapters. So we've studied the definition of hypocrisy, the 2 types of hypocrisy. One is being a hypocrite in Aqidah, although we don't have many of those. It's possible for someone to be like that, but there were people like that in the time of the Prophet ﷺ. We study his story as well. Be sincere, don't just act as though you care about people. The story was about really care about people. Then there were 2 causes for hypocrisy in belief, and 3 causes, and even more, for hypocrisy in action, greed and love for fame as well. When it comes to Aqidah, when it comes to avoiding bad mazhabs, so the Prophet ﷺ said, avoid bad mazhabs. In this day and age, some Muslims might say, not going to listen to a certain scholar, whatever his sect is. No, we should go to every masjid that we should go to every scholar's darses and choose ourselves, decide ourselves what's right and wrong. Well, if you were qualified, you need to be a scholar to be qualified to decide what's right and wrong. So you might go to different masjids and different Aqidah darses, and it's possible you might not pick anything haram up from any of those lessons, and you might just be saved. But it's an extremely risky thing to do, because there's a very high risk of picking up something haram Aqidah or haram opinion, and you won't even realize it just because of your own lack of understanding. Even when you hear people say that, I'm going to listen to both sides of this, both Aqidas, and I'm going to judge myself which daleel is stronger. You actually have to be a scholar to understand the definition of a daleel, what a daleel is, and understand what a strong daleel is and what a weak daleel is. If you don't have a lot of knowledge, you can easily consider a weak daleel, weak Islamic evidence, to be a strong piece of evidence, and you can easily consider a strong piece of evidence to be a weak one. So daleel कहते किसे हैं शरीयत में? Islam dalil hai kya? That requires studying as well. Shall I just go on apna type?
In terms of staying away from the misguided.
Yeah.
Like when you associate with someone, like how much distance should you keep with them, and especially when it comes to your children, well, not especially for yourself and your children. Like watch who they with, and if they are from a particular sort of sect, then try to keep them away.
It depends on how bad that person is. Well, like when we talk about sects, these sects, a lot of them started about 100 or 150, 200 years ago, didn't they? And initially, when these sects started, their main founders, they made like blasphemous comments against the Holy Prophet ﷺ, so they led them out of the fold of Islam. And you still find a lot today, even after 100 years, 150 years. A lot are aware of those initial blasphemous comments that were made 100 years ago, and they agree with them even today. A lot of the scholars will agree. But what you'll find, and so we'll say that even they are kafirs. If someone, even today, 100 years on, agrees with the blasphemous comments that were made 100 years ago, he'll still be a kafir today. But a lot of the youngsters just go to their local masjid. If they're going to a masjid, it's just because they're local one. They don't really know much about their aqidah. So if a lot of people are associating with Bud Mazhab just because they like their English speeches, or they may not be aware of the blasphemous comments that were made 100. So we're not going to call that person a kafir. Even if a person if you see him walking out of a Bud Mazhab masjid, we're not going to say definitely he's a Bud Mazhab. You might say he's misled, or he's ignorant, or he's unaware, he's jahil. But there's a possibility that he's Bud Mazhab. So don't just gauge the level of Bad Mazhabi of someone, how much of a heretic someone is. Someone might just be misled or just innocently going to the wrong masjid. And then depending on that depends on how, whatever level on the chart of Bad Mazhab, strong Bad Mazhab, weak Bad Mazhab, slightly Bad Mazhab, 50%, or his aqidah is very bad, or his is gone to kufr. Depending on that is how you will then react. Obviously the ones who are that top level kufr, don't even do salam with them. Don't even if it's your chacha, mama.
So would you start like investigating?
You don't. You should do some. You don't need to be over. Wahmi Al-Azad Rahmatullah was asked a question that if we ever on a journey and we need to pray namaz and there's an imam and we don't know what his aqidah is, what should we do? And he said, if there's no reason to doubt his aqidah, just pray namaz behind him. If you find out later that his aqidah was wrong, then repeat it. But if there was some reason to doubt it,
like you're building up friendship.
Yeah.
Then would you say?
You usually find out.
Homework, I suppose. Obviously, you've got to do your homework, due diligence, but investigating maybe the stronger word, isn't it?
Yeah.
Investigating.
Yeah.
You probably find out as you go on, I guess. To get to know the person, you get to talk about more things, expand on the conversation.
You find out usually.
People usually themselves just, even without you asking, I found a lot of the time people just themselves will tell you within your first meeting, I go to this masjid. I usually pray Jummah here. I usually pray Jummah here. Just by seeing conversation, even without you asking, they'll tell you where they pray Jummah or which masjid. Or they'll say, I was listening to the speech by so and so, and I really liked it.
So you're not doing the hard thing. Something like that, you know.
Yeah.
Sorry, what? When you're doing it. Well, I was going to say earlier about people, I found the majority of the time when I've been talking to brothers about, if you listen to, like, say, all scholars on YouTube, so when they say, oh, it's damaging, so it can't be, because it is what it is, it's a creation.
Yeah.
I said, look, you don't know Arabic, and you don't have to see it.
Yeah.
So you don't know. You don't know if it's correct what they're saying.
If he's translating it correctly.
But they're implementing their own logic into something that they don't really understand.
Just on that point, Shahid Bhai, and I was going to mention, I've got a few narrations about hypocrisy, which was our topic today, and it just happens to fit in with the what you're talking about, speakers who, like, I'll read this hadith and it'll be self-evident. This is Sahih hadith. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, the thing that I fear for my ummah the most is a hypocrite who's very knowledgeable, got a very alimul lisan, munafiqun alimul lisan. He's got a very sophisticated tongue. يقول ما تعرفون وتعملوا ما تنكرون. He says things that you like, but he does things that you don't like. Another version of this hadith: أخوف ما أخاف على أمتي كل منافق عليم اللسان. The thing that I fear most for my ummah, the thing that I have most khawf for, is a munafiq alimul lisan, a hypocrite who's got a lot of knowledge on his tongue. So the Holy Prophet ﷺ warned us that there will be people who they will not have iman in their hearts, or they will be misguided. And remember, the Prophet ﷺ said, a famous hadith in Bukhari Sharif, that there will in the future, when he said to the Sahaba, there will be misguided people in the future, they will be in the fire. And he said that when you see their namazis, you will belittle your own. You will consider your namazis to be very little compared to theirs. When you see their fasts and their recitation of the Quran, you'll think that they're bigger worshippers than you, but they'll be misguided. So that was prophesied by the Holy Prophet ﷺ. Because someone's crying, or someone sounds very sincere, it doesn't mean that they're on the right path. Many Christian priests or many Christian followers, you'll hear them talking and you think they're very sincere in their faith, or they're very humble, they're crying. That doesn't mean that what they believe is right. So just crying, the fact that someone's prepared to die for their belief doesn't mean that the belief is correct. The fact that someone's sincerely prepared to devote their whole life to propagate a certain belief or religion or aqidah, that's not dalil that the aqidah or the belief is right.
So my Christian pastor is after that. We used to talk with him, because he used to volunteer in the school, and he was coming in and started to talk with him a lot. And then it turned out was, after a long period of time, must have been after about 2 or 3 years, we were going pretty well. And he mentioned something that in his congregation that he wouldn't say, that he should have said. And I asked him why, because I got to know him pretty well. And basically, he didn't want to lose his house, and because he got a free house and a car, and they really look after their pastors there. He had a really big house, really nice house. And if he leaves that congregation or his church or whatever, if the people didn't like him, they ended up getting rid of him. He lost his house, his car, and everything, so he just stays quiet. He get very good pay as well. So to them, it's more like keeping the job. Some of them, anyway, more like keeping the job and keep people happy within their congregation, so they keep in that position.
There's many hadiths about hypocrisy. And the Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, whoever, now the exact words of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam are man kana za wajhaini. The Arabic word for face is wajhun. And if you want to say there's two of something, you add aini at the end. So wajhaini means two faces. Two faces. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, man kana za wajhaini fi dunya kana lahu yawm al-qiyamati lisanun min nar. Whoever has two faces in the dunya will have a tongue of fire on the day of Qiyamah. Okay. So he sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned in those words, two-faced person. Don't be a two-faced person. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned the word two faces. वन हदीस इन अबू दाऊद शरीफ है, जिसने लोगों के दिलों को अपने जाल में फंसाने के लिए उम्दा गुफ्तगू सीखी, तो अल्लाह पाक क़यामत के दिन उसकी फ़र्ज़ इबादत कबूल फरमाएगा, ना ही नफल इबादत. Whoever learns how to speak in a sophisticated or captivating way just to attract the attention of people, whether it's the awam or students, to be famous, Allah Ta'ala won't accept his farz or his nafal ibadat, because he's not sincere. So the Prophet ﷺ did warn about, don't be impressed by the way people talk. We in our community, especially, I mentioned this yesterday as well, in our community, so silence is like it's rare. We have to talk back, we have to snap back, and we have to silence the other person. You've got to have a quick comeback. It's like a ping pong match, and then he's got to come back in. You have a jawab to his jawab, he has a jawab to your jawab. There's a lot of that happening in our community. Yes, you've got to have, and we glorify that snapping back with a quick answer. Just being quiet and speaking when it's necessary to speak, as they say, daralenal. You got to speak daralenal bolo. फिर खामोशी भी दरालेनाल होनी चाहिए, where you don't have to talk. Don't talk. The Prophet ﷺ warned as well. One of the du'as that we learn from the hadith that the Sahaba used to do, oh Allah, save me from khushu in nifaq, save me from fake humility. Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min khushu in nifaq. Now, that's definitely a dua that the Sahaba did, and obviously they must have learned that from the Holy Prophet ﷺ. Oh Allah, I ask your protection from fake humility, khushu in nifaq, khushu in nifaq. Which is for a person to act humble on the outside, but inside think he's better than other people. Humility isn't just walking out with your shoulders sort of bent and your neck bent, and that means you're humble. You can be inside your heart thinking that you're better than the people around you, more pious than the people around you. And there's a difference between khush akhlaqi and khush amad. There's a difference between having a good character, being a friendly person, and being a flatterer or people pleaser. So khush akhlaqi is good, khush amad is bad. So sometimes someone's really got a nice big smile on his face and he's meeting people in a nice, very joyful, cheerful way. But it's actually khush amad, he's people pleasing, he's sucking up to them. We obviously can't say that unless we've been in their company for a long time. And also it's important, there's a difference between bad akhlaqi and istighna. Some people look at khush akhlaq to us, but they're not, they're just people pleasers. Some people look bad akhlaq, they're just like keeping themselves to themselves. They're not bad akhlaq. Just because he's got a serious face, it doesn't mean he's bad akhlaq. It could be istighna, which is he doesn't want to depend on people, he doesn't want to need people. So istighna is a good thing. Something, Ajwad, you were talking about imama yesterday, sunnats. Sometimes, the people who are objecting to imama barapaye, ji Sheikh Sahab, imama paye, a lot of the time, the people who are objecting to us wearing imama are not even fulfilling their own farz and sunnats, farz and wajibs. So they're objecting to other people doing nafals and sunnats, and they're not even fulfilling their own farz and wajibs. So it's just like a cheap sort of, like I said, in our Asian community, they've just got to have something to talk about all the time and criticize. The other thing that I wanted to say about sunnats, don't wait until you fulfilled all of your farz and your wajibs to then start practicing your sunnats. Of course, farz are most important, then you got wajibs, then you got sunnat-e-muakkadas, then you got sunnat-e-ghair-muakkadas in list of importance. But if you're going to wait to do all your farz and your wajibs and think, well, I'm only going to practice my sunnats after I've done all those, that's not wise. Because remember, even the sunnats, the niyat behind the sunnat should be, this sunnat motivates me to do my faraiz and wajibat. Okay? If I had a board in front of me, I'd draw what the Salaf Salihin have taught us. Iman at the center. Iman is the most important thing. And one circle around Iman, that's your first wall and that's your faraiz. Another circle around that, a second circle around that first one, that's your wajibat. A third circle around that second circle, that third circle is your sunnat-e-muakkadas. And then a fourth circle, that's your sunnat-e-ghair-muakkadas, your nafals or your mustahabs. So what are those walls for? The thing in the middle was your iman, that's the most important thing. Those four walls are to protect your iman. So the more walls you have, the safer your iman is. So if you look at the sunnats are not just random actions. Every sunnat's linked to a wajib or a farz. So they're all walls around. Like even if you look at namaz, ruku is farz in namaz. So even if you do ruku for half a second, or a split second, your farz is done. But staying in ruku for the amount of time it takes to say subhanallah once, that's wajib. And then staying in ruku for 3 subhanallahs and saying 3 subhanallahs is sunnat. And in ruku, having your eyes, is mustahab to have your eyes on your feet, the back of your feet or the front of your feet. So you've got that mustahab helps you to act upon that sunnat helps you to act upon that wajib helps you to act upon that farz. So all the sunnats, they complement the faraiz. So when we act upon things like, whether it's the imama was just a random example yesterday, wasn't it? Any sunnat, act upon it with the intention, number one, the first thing I said was don't wait for you to act upon all your farz and wajibs for you to then start acting upon your mustahabs and sunnahs. Secondly, even act upon the sunnahs, thinking that these actually motivate you with your farz. Every sunnah, try to make the connection between the sunnah and the farz. And with that intention, we're talking about intention kya honi chahiye, where it's the sunnah of our Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, theek hai, but how is that sunnah, how this particular example was the example of the Imam, how is that helping us with the faraiz? Well, obeying and loving the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is farz ain for us. So acting upon all the sunnahs and helps us to obey that message of loving him, having ishq for him, imitating him, even though the imamah itself is not a wajib or it's not sunnat muakkada. Even if someone doesn't wear imamah all his life, he's not gunagar, but it helps with the ishq rasool in his heart, which is farz. And once you've got the ishq, it helps with the general concept of obedience, and within obedience comes farz and wajibs as well. So it helps with that. So making that connection. So that's what I wanted to say off the back of yesterday. Okay, think of iman in the center, and the faraiz, then the wajibat, and the sunnati muakkadas, and the nafals. Think of these as 4 walls around your iman. The more walls you have, the more safer your iman is.
I would say you also apparent sunnahs like Imam Rashid as well. I mean, these are the 2 things that either warms me to stay away from, if they're always criticising stuff like that, or it shows me who wants to learn, who wants to come closer to Rasulullah. And I used it for, I used to say it's like an armor, you put it on, when people see you coming, they either stay away from you because they think you're a nutter, or they come to you because you go, mashallah, you're a monastery, where do you get it, this, that, and the other.
When it comes here, sometimes you do get like looked as though we're nutters.
But sometimes it's a friendly look as a nutter, but sometimes it's
there's a saying that we finish off on this as well. It's 45 minutes, and the brother of Allah Hazrat has said this. And I'm trying to think of the second reference. I've read it at least 2 places, both authentic places, that if the Sahaba were here today, they'd think that so the average Muslim, they think that the Muslims are kafirs. And if the Muslims of today saw the Sahaba today, they think that these people were crazy. If the Muslims saw the Sahaba, if you saw the Sahaba today, you think that these are crazy people.
Is that the way they did things as well?
Because their ishq, their mizaj, their attitude, they'd be like doing zikr all the time, or they'd be totally detached from the dunya. People like we get sometimes told, when you probably heard this comment as well, when you just got an imam on, zamane na jalaya karo, look at the time you're living in. Dunya bhi honi chahiye, dunya deen nu balance karya karo. Things like that. Because they'd be detached from, even in this day and age, they'd be detached from the dunya. They wouldn't be chasing as much as we are. They'd be classed as people who are just not in touch. And like a lot of the Muslims today, when you talk about balancing deen and dunya, the ones who are talking about the balance are not really balanced. They think this because they're coming to the masjid and they've got a beard, they've got some hair on their face, and they're praying their 5 namazis, and then they're following the social norms as well. They think that's what you call a balance. It's not a balance.
What we call a balance then?
To know whether you're balanced or not, you have to have knowledge of your faraiz and wajibat, don't you? If you're fulfilling all your faraiz and wajibat, you're not doing anything haram, you're following the culture as well without doing anything haram, makruh tahrimi, and you're doing your faraiz and wajib, then you're balanced. Just praying your 5 namazis and having a few hairs on your face.
Can somebody reach the level of taqwa without beard?
Beard is wajib. In all 4 schools of thought, we'll talk about that in detail. All 4 schools agree that you have to have a beard. The length of the beard is a different issue.
Yeah, I'm on about the length really. Some of them are a bit short.
The length in the Hanafi.
There are many pious people that have never had a beard as well. When I mean never had a beard, I don't mean like a shave.
There's no evidence of any Sahabi, radiallahu ta'ala, or the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam ever trimming their beard less than a fist. There's no evidence. There's no evidence of any Sahabi. No one can show you a riwayat about the Holy Prophet ﷺ or any Sahabi trimming their beard, even occasionally under a fist. There's no evidence for that. Yeah, the Shafis believe under a fist is okay. And the Hanafis, the overwhelming majority opinion, it should be a fist. But that's a different issue. I don't. How do we get to the beard issue? Sunnats,
Yeah, just
sunnat. So balance, sunnat, balance. Me saying a few hairs on the face. See,
Did you read the message when I before that?
was it about Hajj?
Yes.
The first 10 days of Zulhijjah, it is permissible to cut your nails. Even if you, whether you're doing Qurbani or not, it's permissible to trim your hair and nails. It's better not to.
You can do it, there's no gonna guard.
No,
There's nothing gonna do that.
Jazakallah khair. We're going to get up as well anyway, inshallah.
I've got a clip that goes with the full explanation.
जी, ठीक है. Yeah, the hikmah behind that is imitating the Hajis.
But some people want to do it. Some people like.
No, it's good.
They're not
It's good.
used to it.
It's good. Jazakallah. Thanks to the officer.
So there's no guna on them.
No, it's ironic how it's ironic how everyone has to have a haircut before Eid, and it's actually mustahab.
Mine's very big now.
My hair's
My
really
grey,
long.
my grey
I
hair
don't have
showing.
my hair this long.
It's mustahab. It's a hadith. That's a hadith. That is. The Holy Prophet ﷺ said, "Whoever intends to do Qurbani, don't trim your hair." That's a hadith. So
What
until
about
you
your hair that needs to be cleaned?
well, if it's remember the hair that needs to be cleaned, even your nails and your private hairs, the max you can leave them for is 40 days. Above 40 is makruh tahrimi. So if it's reached that 40-day limit, then you have to trim.
Then you can't
The
wait.
40 days is jais, 41 days is not jais. You can't wait for the 41st day. Well, better, I think on a weekly basis, but that's the max. 41 days, leaving the under the private parts. Yeah, 40 days is max. If
When you're working, it's not long, but when you've got them things to do, it seems like a long time. You get plenty of time.
Yeah. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. Astaghfirullah. Jazakallah everyone for your precious time.
Yeah, it's a funny, like, you know,